I wanted to try a little fixed wing flying. I've been flying a lot of helicopters the last couple of weeks, and I wanted to fly this guy, which is the Techone Hobby Lazy Flyer, basically a miniature foam version of the Lazy Bee. The sun is coming, the sun's well up above the horizon, but I'm kind of worried that there's still a lot of mist around, so if I get this guy up, I don't want to let him get very far away, clearly. Batteries and balance have always been a problem with this guy. He has these marks on the bottom for center of gravity. I found he flew terribly tail heavy if you put the center of gravity there. The manual, I bought him at a swap meet like 3 years ago or something. The manual says to use an 8 to 1800 milliamp hour 2 or 3 cell battery. Last time I flew him with a 2200. Well, I flew him with a 1000, but he was horribly tail heavy like that. So then I flew him with a 2200, and I preferred that because at least it put a bit more balance in. This is a 1500, but it's not easy to get anything in him because of the battery compartment is tricky. I'm trying to put this 1500 in if I can. It's a devil to get a battery into this guy, any battery. I'm trying to get this 1500 in if I can, as far forward as I can. You're going to have to put it the other way whether we like it or not. I would rather have put it that way because I could have got it further forward that way, but I've got the transmitter on to the model for this guy. The transmitter's already turned on my DX9. I don't know. Now whether yes, okay. Getting the blasted thing, the battery connected, and getting the battery compartment shut is, oh good, if I can even get the connector in. Ah, for goodness sake. I can't get the connector in at the moment. It's the right connector. I'm not trying to connect apples to oranges or whatever. It's the correct connector, but it just doesn't much want to go in. It certainly doesn't. It certainly doesn't. I cannot get that connector in. Oh, this is right there. Finally got the connector in. Whoa! That was tight. It did not want to go in. And now I've got the connector in, where am I supposed to put the blithering thing relative to the battery? I mean, it's not easy, this stuff. And now we've got wires sort of in the way of where I'm trying to connect the lid. I got that. It's very difficult to do this. There. Okay, so we got the battery in and we got the battery door closed. A big struggle in itself. We've got throttle cut on for what it's worth. Where does this guy balance now? Yeah. Still only is a hair forward. It's a hair forward of those center of gravity markings, and the further forward from those the better as far as I'm concerned. I thought those were way too far back. I thought he flew horribly tail heavy when I had the center of gravity. With 1000 milliamp hour, his center of gravity was just about there, but it was horrible. Now the problem is, with the center of gravity a bit further forward, he tends to tip over on the grass, so getting him to take off can be a bit of a pain, because when you power him up, he tends to nose over. I don't know. We got virtually no wind today. For this guy, a little bit of wind would probably help, but make sure my hat's on. Okay.
Throttle cut off.
Well, he's in the air. He's still tail heavy. He is tail heavy is the problem. He has always had a tendency to be he's very unstable in pitch and tail heavy. Oh, blimey, I can hardly see him. Yeah, he's horribly tail heavy. This battery is not heavy enough to correct his tendency to be tail heavy. This battery is not heavy enough to correct his tendency to be tail heavy. It has a tendency to be tail heavy. As you saw, the center of gravity is ahead of the center of gravity markings. I can also hardly see him because of the mist.
Time remaining 7 minutes.
Yeah, this is not working well, is it? He's tail heavy. The mist is, it's still kind of misty. He won't really glide. I'm using a lot of down elevator. I'm using a lot of down elevator to keep him vaguely level. I just want to get him down at this point because he's not flying well. He's too tail heavy, and also there's enough mist that, you know, he's getting hard to see in the mist when he's just a little way away. He's always had a tendency to be tail heavy. I mean, they say 800 to 1800 milliamp hour battery. I would think he'd be absolutely horrible with an 800. That's a 1500. I don't know. Given that it's so misty, I don't think I can be bothered to try and fly him again this morning, although I've had better success than that flying him with. I thought the 1500 might be a good compromise, but I've had better success than that flying him with a 2200, which at least puts a bit more weight in his nose. Although when you put the weight in his nose, he does tend to nose over. It's hard to get him up because he tends to, as you power him up, he tends to nose over. It's easy if there's a little bit of wind to help hold his tail down with the elevators. Tricky. Not a well balanced plane. Tricky to get sensibly balanced. He flew best. When I flew him before, I flew in with this battery, well, not this particular one necessarily, but this type of battery, a 2200 Gen 6. Very hard, as you can imagine, to fit into that battery compartment, but gives him a little bit more weight in the nose than this 1500. But the 1500, strictly speaking, is more within the range that's recommended in the manual. They say 8 to 1800. Anyway, there you go. You know, that definitely better with the 2200. He was not. He was still nastily tail heavy with that 1500. And I can't really see what I'm doing anyway. Techone Lazy Flyer, a miniature Lazy Bee.